Christian parenting.
For the past year, if you've been listening to this podcast, you've heard that little Christian parenting soundbite at the beginning of each episode. Because it's been just about 1 year since I joined the Christian Parenting Podcasting Network. Christian Parenting not only produces Let's Parent on Purpose, but they actually, I would say they have a podcast for every parent, whether you're a new mom, whether you're an empty nester, whether you're trying to get your finances in order. They have a podcast for every parent. And they have so heavily supported Let's Parent on Purpose. I just want to take a couple moments to thank them. And for those of you especially, I know some of you pray and ask, Lord, what is it that we could give to that would impact the kingdom of God? ChristianParenting.org reaches about 500,000 moms and dads every single month with their content. In addition to producing Let's Parent on Purpose and Pardon the Mess, Legacy Dads, The Journey, and So You're Having a Baby, more and more and more podcasts. In addition to producing all of those podcasts, they have fantastic content on the ChristianParenting.org website. They produce journals, all kinds of resources to help you as a mom and dad. If you're part of my mailing list, my Thanks for Thursday mailing list, nearly every week I'm highlighting something great for free from Christian Parenting. So if you're one of those people that prays and asks, Lord, how can I impact the kingdom of God? Here's a way for you to help impact 500,000 moms and dads around the world, including places where they don't have free access to the gospel. You can do that by giving and helping keep Christian parenting going by texting CP Give to 474747. That's CP Give to 474747, or visiting cpgive.org. And I would encourage you, give a very generous donation. Help pay those incredible audio engineers and producers and the hosting fees for Let's Parent on Purpose. You guys are awesome. I love my audience. I love the generosity of my audience. And I know that some of you have specifically been praying, Lord, how can I impact more people? I'm just throwing this out here. This might be exactly how you do it. Thank you so much. In this last of our Family on Mission series, I'm going to introduce one of my very favorite people in the whole world to you, as we hear about turning chemotherapy into a chance for mission with my son, Elijah Holland.
I don't need to have the new latest and greatest model of anything. If I just have good relationships with other people, then I can be as happy as happy as possible.
Hey, my name is Jay Holland, and this is Let's Parent on Purpose. It's a podcast to help you thrive and not just survive your parenting years. Each week, I'll bring you an insight or an interview that will help strengthen your marriage, your family, or your personal walk with Jesus. And if you find it helpful, I encourage you to subscribe, share it with your friends, and you're welcome to go to letsparentonpurpose.com to find all kinds of past articles, issues, and resources to help your family. As a parent, we make all kinds of goals and plans for our children, and none of them include them getting some kind of life-threatening illness. But that's the very place that we found ourselves as a family in 2014 when my son Elijah developed acute lymphoblastic leukemia. I know that we have moms and dads listening all over the world, and some of you have walked through cancer treatment. Others have walked through many other kinds of crisis in your life. And as we think of family on mission, sometimes we can think, well, how could I possibly stay on mission when we're just trying to survive? And I'll tell you, in our family, the story that you're going to hear today actually helped us survive and thrive in the midst of just one of the most difficult, dark times of our life, a very intensive period of cancer treatment in our lives. I host with Dr. Samuel Thomas of Hope Givers International a separate podcast called Stories of Hope. And for that podcast, each week, there's seasons to it, so it's not as consistent as this one. But we'll bring a single story that highlights something that God is doing in the world of bringing the gospel to India, Burma, Nepal, South Asia. And I had my son Elijah on to share a story of how we linked his chemo treatment with helping to care for orphans, some of the least of these in the nation of India. So if you listen to Stories of Hope, this might be a repeat for you, but most of you have never heard it, and it's such a special story. And so as we wrap up this Family on Mission series, I just wanted to give you a picture of encouragement of how God can take even the darkest, most difficult times of your life and use them for His glory and to be some of the greatest character shaping times that you might possibly have in a family. So I'm going to share with you now this Stories of Hope episode. I hope that you are encouraged by it and that you and your family bring hope to the world around you through the gospel of Christ. All right, well, today I'm going to bring to you a special guest that has never been on this podcast before. And actually, Dr. Sam is not going to be joining us today. He has quite a bit to do. And I've just got a special story that I want to share with you and with one of my very favorite people in the whole world. So today I'd like to introduce to you my oldest son, Elijah. How you doing, Elijah?
I'm good.
Okay, Elijah, how old are you?
I'm 12, and I'm going to turn 13 next month.
Okay, so you'll be 13 before the month is out when this podcast comes out. So happy birthday. What are your big 13-year-old plans?
I don't really have any.
Okay, that's good. Low plans. So what we wanted to share today is, Elijah, you've had a pretty unique life story, and part of that, we got to have some really cool interaction with Hope Givers. So let's just kind of start back when you were about 5 years old. Normal kid, had a weekend where you spiked a fever, and at that point, life really took a radical change for you. So can you tell a little bit about what happened?
Yeah. Well, all I remember is going to my grandparents, and I wasn't feeling very well, so we went home, and I'm pretty sure Sunday or Monday night, we went to the ER, and I remember I had a lot of tests done, and then I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is blood cancer in your bones. And so then I just remember going to the hospital.
Yeah, so that's you were nearly dead, and it's crazy because we didn't know it. You'd been a strong, healthy boy before that, but by the time you spiked this little fever and we got in, I think they gave you like 7 or 8 units of blood that first night as a 5-year-old. And so really our whole family's world changed during that time. And we began a treatment journey that lasted. Do you remember how long your chemo treatment lasted?
3.5 years to 4 years.
Okay. And just a little update. How you doing now?
I'm good. And I got my port taken out when I was about 9.
Okay. So what is a port for those who don't know?
Okay, so a port is this it's this thing in your chest, and this is where they do like all the put all the needles to like run saline, which is like fluids to flush out stuff, and put like medicine through it, and it's like right in your chest.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of right above your heart, directionally in your body, and they put that little port in there. It's like this little rubber gasket underneath your skin, because you have so many injections over that 3.5 years, especially that first year, that they would burn up all of your veins, putting those chemotherapies and everything in there. So we would watch, and after the surgery, they would put in this like about an inch long needle, I think, like an inch to 2 inch long needle. How did that feel as it would go into your body?
Well, I remember the first couple times they had to get a lot of the doctors and the nurses and to like hold me down because I really did not want to I didn't want to get punctured. But after a while, they got this thing called like free spray, where they would just take it and it's like they put like just a really cold ice cube on my chest, and then it'd just be like a little sting on it. It wouldn't be very bad.
Yeah. So that made it a little more tolerable. And you had kind of the interesting thing with the leukemia you have is it's very, very deadly. It used to be one that killed everybody very fast, but it's also the most common childhood cancer, and so they know how to treat it really well. But it does include, I think, like 10 different chemos in addition to steroids and stuff like that. So you were diagnosed in April, actually almost 6 years ago to the day, because this is April 2021. So it was April 14th when you were diagnosed. We started chemo, things were going okay. We got to the middle of the summer, and there was a specific chemotherapy that they were starting on you that you ended up throwing an allergic reaction to. Do you remember what that was called?
Okay, well, the medicine was, or the, what was it?
The chemo?
Yeah, the chemo. It was called pegasparaginase, and I had an allergic reaction where my throat started to close up. So after that, we couldn't use that. So then we went to this other chemo called Erwinia.
Yeah. So pegasparaginase, also called PEG, the treatment for it was supposed to be 6 doses of PEG over the course of a few months, and they would be able to access that through your port. So we each time that was supposed to happen, we were supposed to go to the hospital, have that accessed, spend the day there, and then come home. Once you threw the allergic reaction to it, the alternative drug that they ended up using on you was called Erwinia. And in addition to being very expensive, the treatment of it was much different. So instead of going in for one injection through your port, you had to go in for every single injection. You had to now do 6 injections, actually 6 trips to the hospital. And they used 2 needles and would inject them into your thighs at the same time. So, so basically, for every one PEG injection, you ended up having 12 these. Oh gosh, man, I felt like they were like 3-inch long needles shoved into your thighs. Do you remember how that felt?
Well, honestly, from what I remember, well, I was young, so that...
Yeah, you're about 6 years old, I think.
So back then, that was so painful. It's like, I described it as like the needles, it wasn't so bad. I was calm during the needles, and I tried to like not tense. But once the chemo went in, it felt like they were injecting like fire into your legs. It burned.
Yeah. Yeah, those were awful days. And those were ones again where we had to have mom and dad and several nurses holding you down to do the injections. And this took place, a lot of these Erwinia injections took place basically from like Thanksgiving to Christmas one year. And I remember we were talking, Elijah, and just saying, you know how God often will take terrible things and do something good out of it. What do you think that we could do where we take this bad thing and then do something good? Do you remember what your response was?
Help the orphans in India.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had been involved with Hope Givers for a number of years, just sponsoring orphans and Hope Homes in India. And so we just started with this little basic idea of how can we use this to help the kids in India. And so we came up with this Elijah's Chemo Orphan Challenge, and we just put it out on Facebook and encouraged people to donate $1 per injection that Elijah was going to have over this 3-month period. And I think, Elijah, it was going to be like 65 injections that you were supposed to have over this time. And so we were down in the hospital every other day for months. So we put this out, we shared it, other people shared it. And then we put this little, I don't remember if it was a GoFundMe page or exactly how we did it. But do you happen to remember how much that raised over those 3 months, like between October and Christmas time?
I do not remember.
Yeah, that's money to a 6-year-old is kind of inconsequential, isn't it? It turns out we ended up raising about $20,000 to help the orphans in India. So, and I remember as we were down there each day, that would be something that we would pray about, and we would talk about of like, okay, today's going to really stink, but think of all of the good that's happening. Like how many kids can be fed just by you sitting here and doing your part and taking these shots. I want to take a quick break in the middle of this story to remind you to give to christianparenting.org and help keep Let's Parent on Purpose produced so beautifully, as well as so many other podcasts, a podcast for every parent. If you've never been to christianparenting.org, I'd encourage you, as long as you're not jogging or driving right now, you should stop and check out christianparenting.org, see all of the incredible tools and resources that they have for you. And if the Lord has provided for you to be generous to other people, especially to moms and dads that maybe don't have the resources that you do, why don't you take a moment to do that? Give generously to christianparenting.org that helps my podcast and so many others to reach 500,000 moms and dads every single month. You can do so by texting the word CPGIVE to 474747. That's CPGIVE to 474747, or visiting cpgive.org and helping continue to produce a podcast for every parent. So fast forward a few years, you finished chemo treatment, and I think in 2018, we got to take a family trip to India for about 3 weeks near Christmas time. So do you remember how old you were when we went to India?
I don't remember.
I think you're about 10. Maybe?
Yeah, I'd say about 10.
Yeah. We'll say 10. So how, like, we'd talked about India and you'd heard things before. How was India different than what you were anticipating when you went?
Okay, so like when people would describe India to me, like people would say it's like a poor country, but in like these small houses, and but like we went there, and in some of the cities, like people were literally living in cardboard boxes. Like some people, like that was their roof, and a lot of people have like more than one kid, so like there'd be barely any space for them to just stay, like even just a night.
Yeah. Yeah, we would see whole families piled into these tiny, tiny little shacks. And a shack is like, when I think of a shack, I think of like a wooden structure. And sometimes these just felt like random signs or, things that we would consider garbage that they had just gathered together to make some kind of little shelter. And then how were the streets? Like when you try to think of describing the streets, what comes to mind?
Well, it was chaotic and very dirty.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people just like walking in the street. There were a bunch of animals and like a lot of trash.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see any children running around the streets?
Yeah. Well, this one day I remember we were stopped and there was like one kid who looked like he was in like really bad condition, and another guy was like missing a leg, so he had to crawl on his other leg and his two arms. Mm-hmm. So like just kind of like just crazy to see like how good we have it over here.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. I mean, when we think of poor in the United States, there's poverty, but it doesn't compare to the amount or the kind of poverty that you experience in India. So we got to do a couple of days of just traveling around, visiting things before we hit our first Hope Home, which is the children's homes. What are your impressions when you think about the kids that you encountered? And I think we went to 5 or 6 different Hope Homes. So what are some of the impressions that you have thinking about the kids?
Well, the kids in India and like compared to the kids in my class, well, a lot of people, like people I know, like they're just like, people think that money and stuff is gonna make you happy, but like we're over in India, and like we're over by these kids who literally have nothing, and like they seem like some of the happiest kids I've ever met or seen, and it was just cool to see like money or wealth or anything doesn't get you happiness. It's like the relationships that you have with people.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember, we got to step into a couple of school classrooms, and I remember this one. It was a slum school that was operated by Hope Givers, and I think there must have been 50 or 60 children that were in this school from, like 4 years old up to 12 or 13 years old, all sitting on the floor packed into one room. But they were so thankful to have an education, because aside from Hope Givers being there to give them that education, they had nobody there. What are some, just as far as like being a kid in India, what are some of the like kid things that stood out to you? Like, what are the things that they like to do, or what are the things that really stood out to you?
Well, they played a game called cricket, and it wasn't even like they had the nicest stuff. Like some people would just take like tree branches and play, and then they get like a paper ball, but there was just whatever they could find. I feel like they can just use it as a toy,
Mm-hmm.
and like toys, they maybe had one toy per 8 kids, and that one toy those kids could play with for like 3 hours.
Yeah, we actually got to be there helping pass out hope chests to so many different children's homes. And those are the Christmas presents that mostly Americans donate and provide money for. And then Hope Givers distributes them, where there would be clothes and a blanket, toiletries, and we were able to put a little toy in each one. And it's crazy. Like that one toy was that child's whole toy world. And they were so thrilled and thankful with it. So just kind of want to wrap up real quickly. I really appreciate you sharing. So you were 10, now you're going on 13. And you've had this cancer experience that by God's grace you've been healed from, and it's tied to this experience with India and Hope Givers. How do you think that maybe like having both of those experiences in your life, how do you feel like maybe you have a little bit different perspective than your peers or classmates?
Well, first of all, like just seeing like that I don't need to like have the new latest and greatest model of anything. I can literally, if I just have good relationships with other people, then I can be as happy as like happy as possible. And the cancer, like even just kids like teasing about cancer and stuff in school. It's just like seeing so many people die and like suffer through that, and me being one of like suffering going through that, kind of is just like it's not really funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, I just want to say I am so proud of the way that you took your suffering as a little kid and turned it to be able to use for God's glory. And that's something that every single one of us is, we have the opportunity to do all the time. And it may not be cancer. Hopefully it's not cancer, but like there are going to be major crises in everybody's life. And I think one of the things that God calls us to do as followers of Jesus is to help put meaning to our suffering. And it was really cool the way that you decided to tie in doing something for the orphans in India with that. And then super cool where ultimately they weren't just orphans, but they were like people who became your friends and people that you got to interact with. And they taught you cricket, at least a little bit. And just very, very special times. And we see that relationships, and especially relationship with Jesus, transforms life. So, hey, thank you so much for joining today. You think you'll come back sometime on Stories of Hope?
Yeah.
All right. We appreciate it. Friend, if you're still listening all the way to the credits, then I hope that means that this was a particular blessing to you to hear this podcast. If so, I want to encourage you to share it with somebody else that you think might be helped by it. You're welcome to go to letsparentonpurpose.com to find out more information about show notes, about past issues, all kinds of things to help your family. And I do want to say that Let's Parent on Purpose is a user-supported podcast. And if you would like to be a part of that, you can go to letsparentonpurpose.com, learn how to be a supporter through Patreon or through a one-time gift. Thank you so much for listening. Again, share this with somebody that you know needs to hear it. Remember that parenting is a marathon, not a sprint. And we'll talk to you soon.